And it's funny because I just got my first tattoo at 40.
You did?
Yes, and it says, "She who is brave is free."
You're listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the podcast where we hold the space for successful women in Hollywood to tell their stories. In this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Dosik Carney. She is the COO of the new company Topspin Content after leaving her post as SVP at Discovery Studios. She was initially reluctant to get into reality TV, but leaned in and made a career, and now she has taken a huge leap of faith. She who is brave is free. You can find us at theother50%.com, and you can also go there to buy the Other 50% swag for all your feminist friends. You can also find us on iTunes, Facebook, and on Twitter at Other50%, PERCENT. And here's a lesson we can't repeat often enough. Everything is negotiable. Here, have a listen. What's your job?
What's my job now?
Mm-hmm.
My job now, that's a good question. Well, my official job title that I basically gave myself, COO at Topspin Content.
That is a big fancy title, sister.
It's a fancy title, but a very little company.
Okay, what is Topspin Content?
Topspin Content is a newly formed, probably 2 to 3 month old content production company. So just started, very small. There's like 5 of us, actually. We're making our way, but yes.
And what were you doing right before that?
Right before that, yes. I was the Senior Vice President of Production and Operations at Discovery Studios.
Woo!
Yes, I know. From that, so I used to oversee, I don't know, I guess however you want to put it. I mean, there was a lot of freelance, over 200 people. But now I oversee like one.
I bet you just kick ass at that.
It's ironically she came with me.
Like, I'm going to manage the hell out of you.
I know. I'm managing the hell out of her. That's true. I know. It's a different life for sure. But
so you came up in the reality TV world?
Pretty much, yeah. I started in documentary and news actually.
Oh.
And that was sort of the dream. And then I think I realized that documentary films was just financially, probably. I just wasn't in a position, and I'm also not the kind of person who can kind of be like, oh, I'm just going to, live, kind of frugally and just make documentary films for the rest of my life. It's just not who I am. More power. It's amazing the people who do it. More power to them. But
do a film for 2 years and hope you get paid at the end
of it? It wasn't for me.
Yeah,
but I love them, and I loved, doing, when I was a PA, working on amazing things, and so that was sort of the dream. And then I kind of by accident ended up in reality TV, which is actually how most people end up in reality TV. And when I was like 26, I've been in it ever since.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in New York. So my parents were divorced, so I split my time between Long Island, the North Shore of Long Island, and Queens.
And where'd you go to school?
So in the winters, I would spend the week with my mom and the weekends with my dad. So I went to school, actually. Elementary school was in Manhattan, and high school was in Brooklyn.
And did you know coming out of high school you wanted to get into entertainment?
No, I don't think so. And I didn't go to a school that was, I went to a small liberal arts school, so they didn't have any entertainment, anything.
College, you mean?
College, yeah.
Where'd you go?
Kenyon College.
Oh, yeah.
In Ohio. Yeah, English, history. I was a political science major and really interested in international relations, so I kind of didn't know what I was going to do. I always was interested in I have to say, I loved television forever. I loved watching it. Mm-hmm. To me, television made me calm. It was my kind of, glass of wine for a 6-year-old or 10-year-old. You know what I mean? It was like a very calming, I knew everything was okay when I was sort of watching TV. It was familiar. So I watched a lot of TV, probably much to my parents, they did not like that. But
it has all worked out in the end.
It all worked out in the end. That's true. But I guess I did start realizing sort of that I might be interested when I was a sophomore, and I did an internship between my sophomore and junior year, an internship at Dateline NBC in New York. And
that's pretty good.
It was an interesting experience, actually. It kind of wasn't the greatest experience because there were 25 summer interns at Dateline NBC. Yeah.
How'd
25.
you get the internship?
So I'm incredibly lucky. I kind of come on my mom's side from a family that's been in entertainment. My grandfather was a screenplay writer and was nominated for an Oscar.
So nepotism. The way everyone gets in
absolutely. And my grandmother was one of the first executives at Warner Brothers, and she was a VP of Public Relations. And my aunt was at NBC at the Today Show for a long time. She ran the Today Show. So she knew people at NBC, and she's like, if you're interested, I can get you in there. And I said, okay, this is great. So I go there, and there's 25 of us. And it was like, there literally wasn't enough to do. I mean, there just wasn't enough.
That's a lot.
I mean, that's a lot of interns.
On one show?
Yeah. I mean, Dateline at that point, I think it was in the 90s, was doing it like 3 times a week. But still, I mean... they actually had people that they paid to do work too.
Yeah.
So we
was it unpaid in those days?
Yeah, in those days it was unpaid. It was allowed to be unpaid. So it's just the privilege. I lived with 3 other women who were also doing internships in an apartment that's like the size of this table. We had 2 bunk beds, and it was hysterical.
It was like a dorm room?
It was like a dorm room. It was literally like a dorm room. But it was great. But I kind of was like, I don't know, this is sort of interesting. So, but it was good experience, and you got to meet people and blah, blah, blah. And then the next year I did an internship. I came out to California where my aunt was actually I don't know what her title was, maybe vice president just vice president of production at Turner Original Productions, which was Ted Turner's kind of pet project kind of documentaries. And ironically, so she was a VP, this other guy named Tom McMahon was a VP, and this other person named Tom Beers was a VP in Atlanta. So the 3 of them kind of ran that, and I was a PA. We did really great stuff. But that's how I've known Tom Beers since I was like 19.
So you come from a long line of female badasses.
I do.
Who are in the business.
Yes.
Could I come to Thanksgiving and just interview the whole family?
You can come it's actually Passover, which is the real kicker.
Okay, I'll come to that.
Yeah, there's a ton of powerful women at Passover. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes, it's really cool.
Okay, so what was your first
nepotism,
job?
Yeah. So what was my first job?
Yeah.
My first paid job. I think when I came out to LA, I became a PA on this documentary film called Dying to Tell the Story, which ironically is still probably my favorite project I've ever worked on in all of these years. I mean,
really?
I was 21, so it's been 20 years.
And what is that project?
It was the story of a war photojournalist named Dan Eldon who was stoned to death in Somalia when he was,
I'm not
going to get the age right, but very, very young. He was a Reuters photographer, and he was such an inspiring person. And it was about just war photojournalism in general. And we interviewed we went all around the world. I didn't. I was sort of back in the office. I was just a PA. But just the people that we interviewed, it was just so interesting how sort of they couldn't live without the high of that. It was just a very interesting documentary, and the people that I worked with, I'm still friends with today, still after all this time.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing about that is that the second day I think I started, the line producer named Pat Bichetti, I'm still friends with, broke her right wrist rollerblading with her children, so she couldn't write or type. So I literally had to be literally her right hand for like months. So I got to be a part of
What an incredible opportunity for you.
It's so funny. Yeah, so I had to sit there and like help her write stuff, and I got to be a part of all the meetings. It was really funny. So I got to just really be a part of everything. And it was just one of those projects where it was kind of like a family. I mean, there was only like 10 of us working on the project or something. And, and all of them have now done amazing things. So that was my first paid gig.
And those people, they can't be half-assed about, I'm going to go be a war photographer. I mean, you got to be all in.
You're all in. And the women, I mean, we interviewed women and men. I forget how many we interviewed, but I don't know. They were just doing something so interesting to show the world what's out there, but it's also really damaging to them. I mean, emotionally, incredibly, incredibly damaging.
Well, you can't unsee everything you've seen.
Yeah. And what was so interesting, I remember there were a couple of quotes. It's sort of like, you realize at a certain point you're just shooting this. You're not actually doing anything, right? You're not helping. You're watching someone sit there starving to death. You're taking pictures of that, but you're not giving them food. Help? Yeah, it's that's the thing. It's complicated, and I think it really messes up your head. I mean, it messed up certainly a lot of the photographers, but it's like a lot of them kind of couldn't live without it either.
Did you see recently the woman who took the picture of the starving baby in...
She adopted him.
I
know, and now he looks amazing. I know, because I think that's the thing. You either kind of are in it for the long haul, or you just are like, I got to do something. You know, I'm sure she's probably not going to be a war photojournalist much more with her kid.
But if you can save one baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ay.
So that was my first,
okay.
I know, not quite reality television.
So after that, what happened?
So I did that for a while, and then I worked actually on a PBS documentary with one of the producers who was on Dying to Tell the Story, and that was really fun. It was really homegrown. I mean, I did sound for some of it. It was about the comedy club up on Sunset, the Laugh Factory.
Yes.
They do, the guy that owns the Laugh Factory is amazing. He does this summer program for underprivileged youth, teaching them how to be stand-up comedians. So we chronicled the summer of that, and I got to be really involved. I mean, at the time, I think I was probably 24, 25, and I ended up doing, like, all the checks. I was the accountant for a lot of it. I did, like, the 1099s at the end. You know, I just learned everything. So that was great. But what was funny about that is I decided that project ended in October, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to take kind of the rest of the year off, and I'm sure I'll find something great come January. January comes, nothing. And I'm like, all right, you know, I'm getting really nervous. And so I got to the point where I was like, all right, I'm going to call Tom, because I just, you know, I sort of didn't want to be in reality because I had my nose in the air about reality versus documentary, you know. But I was like, I'm going to call Tom. I need a job. And he said, all right, contact this other guy. So I got a job as a coordinator for a show called Monster House for Discovery Channel. A week later, I became the production manager. I think it was like a week and a half. I remember the negotiation took place in the hallway with a guy named George Puckhaber. He's like, well, what do you want? And I was like, I had no idea what to say.
All the title and all the money.
I know. I should have asked for way more at the time, but live and learn. And that's actually, ironically, that show is where I met my husband, my now husband. And until like 2 months ago, like 4 of the people from that show I worked with at studios. So we've all kind of...
The whole time.
Almost the whole time. I mean, I took a break to work at Discovery Corporate, so there was like a 3-year break. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
You found your tribe early on.
Early on, yes. So yeah, so that was my kind of foray into reality. And
so you were in Discovery early on, and then
yes, I mean, I was working for
Discovery the whole time?
So I was working for Original Productions. It was just a freelance gig, you know, and I then became the line producer for Monster House. And my one claim to fame is that I was the first credited line producer at Original Production.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Credited in the credits. It was very exciting. I just took the bull by the horns. I kept saying to my boss, I was like, well, I can do this for you if you want me to. And he was like, okay. I was like, great. So
you just kept throwing yourself in.
I just kept throwing myself in learning.
You leaned in.
I did. I leaned in a lot. That's for sure. And then I saw a job on like the job, because I was looking to get into corporate because my boyfriend at the time was freelance. And I kind of knew I wanted to have children and you know, get married and kind of have a little more stability, and I knew that I probably wouldn't get that doing freelance work, you know, for the rest of my life.
Someone needs a steady job.
Someone needs a steady job with benefits. So I had always been sort of trolling the internet for stuff, and a production manager job came up at the network, at Discovery Communications. And so I reached out, and the contact that our show, Monster House, had at Discovery was like, oh my God, I didn't want to poach you, so I didn't want to call you, but I'm so glad that you called. I had been this woman,
perfect.
Nikki McKenzie, who I love. She was like, oh my God, thank God you called. So I went through that whole interview process, which to me, I mean, it was so foreign. I mean, I had never been part of a big corporation. I mean, they flew me out to Silver Spring, Maryland for an interview, and I remember thinking, that's crazy. Like, I just
what do I wear?
Yeah, I actually remember exactly what I wore, and I still have the skirt that I wore.
What did you wear?
I wore a black V-neck, sort of light sweater, a skirt, kind of flippy skirt, I don't know, you know, from Ann Taylor, kind of polka dotted, pointy black shoes. And I remember walking to the interview, because people on the East Coast will know this, like the locusts come out every like 9 years, or whatever it is. Like there's this huge thing. So there were like dead, not locusts, it was not locusts, they were those things that make that noise.
Cicadas?
Yes, they were like dead all over the... So as I'm walking, I'm like crunching on my way. So it was between me and this other guy, I know, apparently.
But what a good scene in a movie.
Oh my, I can see it right now, and I was thinking, this is disgusting, and I probably have all this stuff on my feet, but So I got the job, and that was the beginning of my corporate career with Discovery.
And were you nervous about it, or were you thinking, because they wanted you before you even knew it?
I know, but then I knew there was two of us. I desperately wanted the job. Desperately. Yeah. Because it was like real. I mean, quote unquote, It was like a real job. It was like an adult job. And you were a
grown-up.
I was a grown-up.
Were you in your 20s still?
Yeah, I was 20... how old was I? Probably 27 or something.
Ooh, good.
Yeah.
Did you negotiate your salary?
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably not.
You're probably like, yay, thank you.
Yes. I actually took a pay hit. And I remember HR sort of saying, well, that's what happens when you work for a corporation because now you're getting benefits and you're getting 401k or whatever, the list was. No, I took a pay cut. Yes.
If you're in the same situation today, would you have done it differently?
Like if I knew what I know now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You'd be like, that's a bunch of BS.
Yeah, and I'd been like, that's fine. But I would have known. I mean, I was in such a position of, they had all the power.
Oh, of course.
I mean, I had no clue.
Okay, so what was that job?
The title was production manager in the production management department. Basically, at that time, Discovery Communications had, I think, 8 or 9 networks, and I was basically attached to different production companies around, actually the U.S. and the world, some UK, and I was the liaison between the production company and the network in terms of budget, schedule, production issues. So now they changed it so people are now aligned with the network. Back then you were aligned with production companies. So I was aligned with like Pilgrim and GRB and so any show. So let's say GRB was doing a show for Animal Planet, a show for Discovery Channel, like all at the same time. Mm-hmm. I was the liaison for all that, whatever network it was.
So you're managing their whole slate of productions for the monster.
But very arm's length, right? Because I'm not actually doing day to day. I'm managing it for the network and saying, yes, this budget looks right, or hey guys, no, I think what you're asking for is not what they're providing, or oh my gosh, this is a risky production. We need to look into this.
Maybe should get more insurance if you're jumping off the building.
Exactly. Just kind of what. So it's a weird job. It's like a production management executive, kind of, because you end up having 40 or 50 projects, so you're certainly not at a granular level at all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I learned a bit. I mean, it was amazing. I learned about contracts. I mean, I had never known any of that stuff. I learned about contracts and legal and business affairs and finance. I mean, all that stuff that from a corporation level and from a network level that I had no clue. I mean, I was just
it's so different when you're running around on the ground.
Yeah, you're worried. It's like craft service and how the cash in your fanny pack. You know what I mean?
Not the profitability of this.
No, and I didn't even know half the words. I definitely had to look up a lot. I remember people would say things in meetings, and I was like,
what does that mean?
Google that later. What is that? I still do that actually. I do that. I just did that yesterday with something. I was talking to someone.
What did you look up?
It was we were talking to an insurance broker, and he's like, so are you guys thinking about ELP insurance? And I was like, what is that? And as I'm saying, what is that? Like I'm Googling at the same time, employment liability protection. And I think there's an I at the end, insurance, I guess. And it's for insurance to help if somebody tries to sue you for like sexual harassment or something. It's to help pay for the legal fees. Because sort of anyone can kind of do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't even know that existed. So send me the quote.
I just thought it was liability insurance.
No, there's a specific apparently. So Google that.
Oh, good to know.
I'm a big research. If I don't know something, I dig in and find out. But anyway.
All right, you're welcome, everybody.
Yeah. Now you know.
Insurance.
Now you know.
Okay, so that was your corporate stint at Discovery.
Yes.
That was a 3-year?
Well, so I was in that job for 3 years, and I was getting kind of antsy because I'm a kind of a type A person, and I wasn't getting promoted, and I didn't see any kind of direction where I would get promoted, and I just thought, I don't want to sort of do this for the rest of my life. I want to kind of grow. And then I was the production liaison for the internal production company called Discovery Studios. And one of the women who was running Discovery Studios said, you know what, this woman, Nancy Daniels, we just hired her to run our West Coast office. Can you meet with her? Because I think she's going to be looking for like line producer to help her grow the West Coast office. And I was like, absolutely, sure. No problem. So we meet, I remember this really well too. We meet in the conference room. She's 5 months pregnant. I was like, that is so awesome that they hired someone who was 5 months pregnant.
Yeah.
They got her from CBS, so she was like a huge hire. And now she's the GM of TLC. So then I met with her, and she was talking about what she wanted. And she's like, I really want like an EIC and someone who can really do it. And she was sort of going through her list, and we just hit it off right away. I mean, it was just whatever. And I remember walking back to my cubicle and thinking, wait a second, I want that job.
Yeah.
I totally want that job. So I call this other woman, Chris Weber, and I was like, hey, I want, and she's like, oh my God, this is so great. Oh my God. And I was like, what's the rate? What are you guys offering? And she told me what the rate was, and I was like, this is amazing. It was a lot more than I was getting paid.
Perfect.
Right. And I was like, this is great. I totally want it. And she said, okay, it's a little political, obviously, because you're kind of in the same company. Let's figure out how we can do this.
Yeah.
Nancy wants you, blah, blah, blah. So it actually became a whole big thing for various reasons. One, the sort of department I was in was sort of not happy that I was moving to something else. And so I had to actually, for a month, had to do both jobs.
Great.
Which
that'll teach you.
I remember crying at my desk, like, so overwhelmed. Yeah, exactly. That'll teach you. Oh, that was awful. And then the negotiations were so interesting because I knew what the job offer was. It was what they had offered everyone, or what they had put out for everyone else. And HR called me and said, hey, so, here's the offer. Da, da, da. And it was like nothing near what the money was.
Oh,
nothing near.
And
I was like,
just do an internal transfer and then get you for less. And so they're going to.
And I was like, I actually thought sort of first she had made a mistake because I was like, oh no, it's actually, I'm sorry, maybe Chris didn't call you. It's this number. I actually, because sometimes, they don't talk and blah, blah. So she was like, no, because you can only get promoted, you can only make this much. And I was like, okay, well then I'm just not going to take the job. That's fine. I just won't take the job. Like I'm not.
If you quit and got hired as an outsider tomorrow, you'd get the money.
Exactly. I was like, I'm not, I think I had learned at that point, like, no. That's just, I'm not interested in that. And so it had to go, and Chris was like, this is ridiculous. It ended up having, apparently Nancy had to call the head of studios at the time, like, and he happened to be in Australia, and was like, can you please do something and like make this happen? He was like, yes, just pay it. And then it was done.
Good.
But it was like, you're not allowed to sort of grow more than whatever the percentage rate was. But somehow they made it work.
Imagine that.
And I think that was the first time I realized, like, everything is negotiable.
How do you think you got to that place where you were like, no, that's not acceptable, I'll walk away?
I think there were a couple things. I think I 100% knew I had the support of the people at studios. This woman Chris, and Nancy. I knew that they absolutely wanted me and would fight for me. Did I know that they would win? Not really, but I just knew that they were like, this is ridiculous. I knew that. And sort of having that support, and also knowing, listen, I guess if it doesn't happen, I'll just stay here and keep looking for work, so be it.
Yeah, worst case, you keep your job.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I kind of was in a win-win situation, and I had support from, the people, the jobs I was going to.
And these were all women fighting for you?
They were, actually. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
It's not going to take down the studio.
It wasn't a lot of money, I can tell you that. It was not some insane amount.
So
and then I stayed.
You moved over to Discovery Studios. And then how long did you stay there?
I stayed at Discovery Studios for 9 years and grew and had 7 bosses in 9 years. I think we counted at 7. 1 year I actually had 3 bosses. Yeah, I was there 9 years and I just grew. I just helped it grow into sort of what it is today. We started with, really small. And
so you rose through the ranks of that until you were the big boss applesauce.
Yes.
And you did a bunch of shows while you were there.
Hundreds, yes.
For a bunch of different networks.
A bunch of different networks. Some outside networks too, but yeah, mostly Discovery networks.
Okay, and at some point along the way, you got married.
I did. Yes, I got married when I was at Studios. Yeah, it was 2009. So I started at Studios in 2007.
Okay, and at some point, you had babies.
I did.
At the same time.
I had 2 babies at the same time. Yes, I had twins. I was like, wait, what is she? Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I had twins. Yes.
How was that?
A hard fought twinship. Well, for me, we had gone through a lot of problems. We had wanted to get pregnant right after we got married because we had been together for 6 years before we got married. And we found it hard to get pregnant. And so we went through all this stuff and we started going through IVF, which, when you're going through IVF, the nice thing about being in a big corporation is you kind of have that a little more flexibility. As I said, I'm very type A, so I'm always, still always on my phone and always on my BlackBerry at the time, probably. But you have an organization that understands a little more.
Or at least go to a doctor's appointment.
Right. Or at least Discovery understood. I actually don't know if other corporations are like that. But yeah, you can go to a doctor's appointment and they kind of can't say, how dare you go. It's just different.
It's not production.
Yeah, it's not production. Right. Like you don't have a call time in the same way. Right. So I was incredibly lucky, and Discovery's insurance was fantastic. But going through all that, was never particularly fun. But yes, then I got pregnant with twins after actually I had a miscarriage. And then I got pregnant with the twins. And I actually worked all the way through. I worked till 4 days before the babies were born.
4 days?
Yeah. I had this great plan that I was going to take like a week and a half off, but it ended up... So I think I was 37 weeks, which is like full term for twins.
Yeah.
But I had this plan that I was going to take off like 7 or 8 days, and then it ended up only being 4. And so it goes.
Oh my God. How did you feel while you were pregnant?
I loved being pregnant, actually.
You were sick?
In the beginning, I was sick a little bit, but I got over that, and I was able to work. And then I just loved it. I really, really... I mean, towards the end, it was like...
Enough.
I remember telling my assistant, it was so funny. My assistant was a guy, and we always joked like he's going to know more about pregnancy and pregnant women than like anyone on like any guy on the planet. And he would be so sweet because he could see by the end it was just really hard for me to like get up and move around.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, "Can I get you water?" So I'm like, "Thank you," because I'm never that person who's like, "Get me a coffee" or "Get me." It's just not who I am. And so I always felt, I was like, "Do you mind? That'd be great." He's like, "No." I was like, "Thank you." I mean, just getting up to go to the bathroom was like, "Oh God, kill me now." The hardest thing one of the hard things about that sort of when I was pregnant. So we were trying to figure out how to replace me during my maternity leave. Mm-hmm. So we ended up hiring somebody to replace me, and I found that very, very difficult.
Tell me more.
It was like my baby, I mean, Studios was sort of like my baby, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. It was like my children, and it was like I was giving it to somebody else to kind of take over while I was gone. And I remember feeling kind of sort of put out to pasture in a sense. I mean, I put myself out to pasture.
Yeah.
And by choice.
But you had to let go.
But I had to let go, and it was very, very difficult for me
Who'd you
to
find
let
to
go.
do it?
Well, her name was Dahlia Edwards. She's amazing, actually. She was incredible. So good. She's now actually running her husband's company, which is this big production design company. And she was great. And she was, there while I was gone and made sure everybody was okay. But it's hard, when you leave, you kind of feel like, are they going to, love mom better than the original mom?
Are they going to let me come back?
Yeah, they're going to let me, you start sort of asking yourselves these questions, like, what if she's better than I am? And what if they like her more? And that's my insecurity, for sure.
And you have enough to deal with.
Yeah.
What you're
So,
about to
I mean,
deal
I
with.
didn't think about it a ton during maternity leave. It was more sort of like during the transition. We had about a month and a half before I left where we were sort of sharing the job, which was very difficult for me because I had to let go, and it was just not
And you're so emotional anyway.
Oh, yeah. It's just a mess, right? It's like I'm controlling to begin with. Then I'm emotional with the pregnancy and
twins.
And twins. And and I gained 60 pounds. And it's like I look, the whole thing was crazy.
You're not
and I moved.
Pretty.
I moved when I was 7.5 months pregnant into a new house, right? So that
was madness.
Yeah. So there was a lot going on. But yes, once I had the babies, I was a little more kind of like, I mean, your brain is like really somewhere else.
You have to surrender.
Right. But then it was hard coming back. For lots of reasons, but...
Okay, so how long did you take off?
I took off 4 months, although I always joke that, because I have twins, I should have gotten, like, double the maternity leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So I took off 4 months.
And did you unplug during that time?
No. Yes. I didn't... Yeah, right. Actually, I remember really well, the babies were, like, 3 weeks old, and I had to have this heart-wrenching conversation with somebody, and this was such an awful conversation, this horrible conversation with someone about why they weren't getting a job or why something was happening. My children were screaming in the other room. And I felt like I had to finish this conversation with this person. And I remember after the phone call, I just like collapsed on the floor crying because I was like, what am I doing? Like, what is happening? What am I doing? This is madness. I just was like, it became very overwhelming. That was kind of the last phone call.
I bet you're...
Yeah, everything. Again, you're so emotional. I mean, it was like 3 weeks. I'll never forget that phone call. It was like the most... I was like almost crying on the phone call. Anyway, it was.
It's a little.
I'm sure
too much.
A little too much. I remember. I'm sure she remembers the phone call too. But after that, the only thing I did was like delete emails. I didn't respond to anything. I didn't talk about anything. I just didn't want to come to work with like 6,000 emails. So I literally would just delete emails. I mean, I maybe would look at, but I didn't.
Read them so you know what's happening.
I didn't. I barely.
Engaged.
No, not engaged at all. At all.
You weren't sleeping, or
I don't.
Do you even remember?
No, and there was nothing for me to really be engaged in. I mean, if someone had asked me, maybe at some point someone asked me one question, but it would be like a quick, would be an answer. I wasn't
Yes,
getting...
it's in the closet.
Right, exactly. Like, I wasn't getting involved. So...
Okay, so tell me how it was to go back to work then.
That, as probably most women know, or I've asked a few women what it was like. You feel like you're in a fog. I remember not only feeling like I was in a fog, but I literally felt like I didn't know how to do the job. Like that I had lost that ability. Like I couldn't remember anything. It was almost like completely...
Because of the brain fog?
I don't know. It felt like I was completely not in the groove. I don't know. I don't know.
Your whole world has completely changed?
I think that was a lot of it. Your perspective changes. Your schedule is massively changing. The way I used to go to work was so different than the way everything changed. And I think I went in and I was like, oh my God, I don't remember how to do any of this stuff. I don't remember how to do it. And it was difficult. And not only that, you're also feeling sort of this guilt of leaving your children.
Who'd you leave them with?
We had a nanny, an amazing nanny, who actually was with us since they were 3 days old. The reason she was with us for so long is she waited for us. We basically hired her at Thanksgiving, and I didn't have the babies till February, and she waited till February, and she's like, listen, I can't wait till they're like 4 months old. So we actually hired her, and she stayed at night during the week, which was like fantastic. Amazing. I mean, with twins, it was like
to have help,
lifesaver. So I had already felt so comfortable with her because I'd been with her basically for 4 months, and she had been with the kids. So that, I mean, that wasn't really the big thing. I wasn't nervous at all about who I was leaving them with or how that would work. But it was more just sort of, not seeing them every day in the same way, and not being there, and you feel guilty. You feel
there's no winning.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is what it is. Yeah.
Were you breastfeeding?
I tried to breastfeed, and I only was able to breastfeed for like a month. I had actually, talk about guilt. I had all these issues. I ended up having to go to like a specialist, and then we had to get like special drugs from Canada to try to help, but then it gave me these horrible headaches. I mean, I tried everything because I really, really wanted to breastfeed them longer.
Can I just say, it is not the most natural thing in the world.
I know.
It is not easy.
It is not easy. But I remember what actually really helped was, so I hired a lactation specialist. And I remember her saying to me, and this is the woman who obviously is a big proponent of breastfeeding, but I liked her a lot. And she said to me, she's like, listen, here's the thing. Your kids are going to be happier with a sane mom than a breastfeeding mom. She's like, in the end, it doesn't matter. It's about making sure you're there for the children, whether you're breastfeeding or not. And I remember thinking, it like sort of let me off the hook a little bit,
Sanity has to win.
Yeah. It's like, exactly. Like, you know what? Your kids need you.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually you in a good place.
Right.
That's actually the most important. And it kind of was like, I remember that conversation thinking, thank God. Like, it's going to be okay. So at that point, I wasn't pumping or anything when I went to work. They had actually had to start on formula since the day they were born because they were little. They were twins.
Okay, so you went back to work. Did you cry the whole way your first day?
Yeah, there was a lot of crying. It was just, a lot of crying. And then, it's funny. Then you kind of get into your groove, and I had like my thing, and I had my plan, and, we actually started doing, I remember right before I went back to work, we did sleep training, because I was like, there's just no way I can, I need sleep. I'm the person who needs sleep. I'm just not that person. So that actually worked out great.
And with twins, if they're on opposite schedules,
you have to be on the same thing. So they were sleeping through the night at that point, which was great, pretty much.
Good job.
So that was good.
Did it make you much more efficient in your day job so you could go home?
I've always been very efficient because I've never been one of those people who kind of likes to stay at work just to stay. Let's hang out for 2 hours and then work till 9 o'clock at night. Yeah, which was funny because a lot of production people are like that.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm just I was always very efficient. So I think I actually kept that the same.
So it didn't even ratchet up. You were already at an 11.
Yeah, I think I was already at an 11. Yeah, to be honest with you.
Now, was your husband working at the same time?
Yes, he was working while I was giving birth, really. Like, the next day he was working.
Oh, my God.
But then he was able... So he was working kind of for, like, the first month. But then he was able to take off 6 weeks, California, which we didn't even know about. That was great. So then we had, like, 6 weeks just for us, which was great. And there's all these great pictures of us just sort of, like, in the bed feeding them, just probably, like, a Wednesday at 2. Hanging out.
That's so nice.
So that was really nice. Yep.
Now, does he experience the same guilt when he goes to work?
I actually think he does. I think he does. That's just the kind of person he is.
Yeah.
I actually think he does.
That's so nice to hear.
I'm like, I don't really have any more to add to that, but
he does.
I think he does.
Too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think both of us at some times sort of feel like, ironically, work is an escape.
Of course.
Yeah, it's like people kind of look and think, like, thank God I'm going to work at, he sometimes has an early call time, 6 a.m. Like, thank God I'm going to a 6 a.m. call time because it's like I don't have to deal with the morning routine or something.
I get out of breakfast and get I'm dressed.
Exactly.
I can go to the bathroom by myself.
Exactly.
Drink a cup of coffee.
Yeah, but I think, and maybe he feels the same. I don't know. I mean, I think we both feel probably the same amount of guilt.
Yeah.
Actually.
How have you negotiated your division of labor at home?
We pay people to help, I have to say, is a really, I mean, I hate to admit that, but it's a huge help. I mean, to me, I always joked, I was like, I'd rather eat ramen all day than like not have a housekeeper once a week. Like if I have to me, I don't really want to spend my weekends like scrubbing toilets and stuff. Like I kind of want to spend them with my kids if I can because I don't have that much time. So, but in terms of division of labor, it's interesting. I mean, I usually drop them off at school because he's usually gone early. They get picked up by our nanny. In terms of who's home, she actually cooks them dinner at now, but it's all going to change when they go to kindergarten because like the whole day is going to change.
Do you get to keep your nanny when they go to kindergarten?
So actually our nanny is retiring in December.
How dare she?
I know. But actually, you know what? I think it's kind of a good thing. I think, they were babies and now they're kind of kids. So we have someone who's going to help from 2 to 7. So that's going to change our lives a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're not going to have that sort of person, in the mornings to help. But
it's a different ballgame.
Yeah, they're going to have to, actually learn how to get dressed themselves. And, I mean,
that's
they
not
know
bad for them.
I say they know how to dress themselves. They just choose not to dress themselves. But, I'm trying to think of division of labor. I mean, I handle I actually always have all of the money, all of the finances, for everything. I handle all of that. I mean, I do handle all the, I don't know what you would say is logistical things for sure.
Yeah. Like, are you planning the birthday parties and the doctor's visits?
Yeah,
and the school?
Yes,
Yes,
I make sure. Yes, that's true. So I guess, like if they need for Wacky Wednesday, I know that they need to, wear their shirts backwards, or for the Thanksgiving thing. Yes, that's true. Yes.
You have the running household list in your head.
I do. I have the running household list. I make sure all of the, we don't run out of toilet paper. I make sure I guess I do all that stuff. Yep. It's funny. I never really thought about it, but
you're welcome.
Yeah, I'm like,
welcome.
I guess I do that.
Leah's husband, you're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's, what's funny about it is I just think I'm a lot better at it than he is, and so I just it's probably more of a control thing. Honestly, I don't know if I could even not do it.
That's what I was going to say. You could not do it even if you tried.
Probably not. I probably just would be like, it's fine. I'll just do it.
So it's fine, and you have no resentment about it.
No, I mean, I actually don't. That stuff, I don't like ordering toilet paper and, I sit at and the other thing too with my job is I actually sit at a desk more than he does. He's running around. It's actually easier for me to do those kinds of things, like check on the finances and move money around. I can do that more easily. I always have been able to because I'm kind of in one space.
Because you're clicking on Amazon. You're not going to Costco.
No. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Now with all this, thank God for Amazon Prime. I don't go anywhere, really.
Oh,
but he he does a lot of the like house guy stuff.
Well, those are boy jobs.
And boy jobs, exactly. Well, he's a lot better at them than I am. I mean, actually, and he does the creative jobs. Like this Halloween, he did this amazing, I don't know if you call it statue, whatever, of this like scarecrow pumpkin, huge. I mean, it was probably 20 feet in the air.
What?
And he put like a light on it, and he did the fog machine, and he did the whole thing, and it was like known. You can look it up on the internet. It was like on people's Instagram. Yeah, it was amazing in Valley Village, and he does that kind of stuff, which I am not good at, and he's also a lot better at kind of. I have to say, I'm not the mom who sits on the floor and like plays games forever.
Yeah,
I'm not that mom. I mean, I do love putting together a Lego set thing and following directions, I have to say. But
I do love a good Lego set.
I do. Rowan has started getting into that Legos, and I'm like, ooh, let's make... What ends up happening is I end up making the whole thing, and I'm like, oh, that didn't teach him anything.
Oh, no,
I'm like, look
awesome.
at how cool.
Yeah, the little box with the instructions.
Love it. I know. It's very, like, zen in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike, I think, does more of the kind of almost teaching kind of... I don't know, sort of explaining the universe and, that kind of stuff. More kind of, creative isn't the right word, but,
Well, it sounds like you picked the right partner and you have a good balance.
Yeah. I think it sometimes the balance gets out of whack for sure. He travels a lot, and I think that's sometimes hard. If he's traveling for a long time and he comes back, it's like, oh right, now I have to get used to like
re-entry
again. Yeah, and even if it's just for like a week or something, it's sort of like, a lot of things happen with kids for a week. You have a new thing that's an issue or whatever it is, and you kind of have to re-engage.
What kind of shows does he work on?
Right now he's the production designer for American Ninja Warrior.
Huh.
And he does a lot of competition shows. They're doing this other thing in Orlando, a different kind of show.
So he's not doing movies where he could be gone for 8 months?
No, definitely not. No. And we've been sort of careful he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to be gone. Yeah, it's a good balance. I think it's going to be interesting with this new business because I really don't know sort of what it's going to take. I know it's going to take a lot of work, but I just don't know what that exactly looks like yet.
Because once you get rolling, it could be a lot of hours.
It could be a lot of hours, yeah. And I just want to make sure that my kids are, that I'm still there for them. And they're going to be starting kindergarten. They're going to have a lot of changes. And, luckily I have family that visit a lot and we're very close. And my aunt actually lives very, very close by. So I have to say it's so amazing. Like, she'll come and watch the kids if I need to, if Mike's gone and I want to go somewhere, if I want to take an exercise class or yoga or something, she'll come, which is like such a blessing because I really need to have sometimes like a moment.
You need a moment to yourself.
Just need a moment.
Once in a while.
Yeah.
And you're the boss applesauce at this company. So
I have other partners.
Oh, you're one of the boss.
I'm one of the partners, yeah.
Are you thinking consciously about what kind of culture you want to create there?
Very much so. It's interesting, too. I've been thinking, because of the election, my partners are all men and older than I am by fairly significant amounts. And I say that because we're just in very different stages of our lives. Their children are grown up and, so we're in different places. And just thinking a lot about the culture of our company and kind of what it's going to look like. The one nice thing is my partners and I all agree that family is very, very important. And we would never, and I never did this at Discovery. I never did this. I never have done that. If you need to go to a doctor's appointment, go to the doctor's appointment. If you need to go home to your kid's thing, just go to your, let me know in advance, go to your kid's thing. As long as you do your work, like I'm not crazed about like any of that stuff,
Right.
And I want to hire people that want to do good work. It's not about like, what can I get away with? That's like not,
How can I abuse the people?
Yeah, I don't want to hire people like that. But I'm also always been into having a family. That's always the kind of, even when I was at studios, we made it a family. That's always, you spend a lot of time with these people, and in some ways more time than you do with your own family.
It can be pleasant.
Yeah. And I'm not a screamer. I don't do any of that stuff. I have high expectations. I'm not going to lie. I have high expectations for myself and for the people that work for me and the people I work with. But to me, it's about sort of I want to know the people that work with me. I want to know their families. I want to know what they're doing. I want to ask. It's not just they're there just to kind of do the work and go home. Mm-hmm. So that's what's kind of nice about this. We all pull together and, we have like our cute little office with our little fridge and our coffee. We're like this teeny little group and we're all, I went and we decorated the office. I think to me the culture is really just that's the other thing, really all inclusive and having everyone be a part of as much as possible. Obviously there's some things that like our coordinators can't be involved in, but we try to get them into as many meetings as we can because we're sort of, both of our coordinators now left with us from studios. So they kind of took a bet on us, you know, and I'm flattered by that. They think that we're worth taking a chance on. And
then that gives you some responsibility to help grow
I
them.
I want them to grow. Yeah, I absolutely. And I think I remember being them. It's funny because it's two women actually. And I remember being like them, and I just want to like be involved in whatever that anyone would give me. Like any meeting, like sure, I'll be in anything, And I've always said to everyone, like if there's something that you see or some meeting that you see on the books that you want to be, ask me, and I'll be honest. If you can't, I'll say sorry. You can't be in this one, but. Certainly at this company, it's like 99% of them you can. Before there was like some HR stuff, you couldn't be in. But, to me, it's about as much of a culture of inclusion as possible. And starting your own company, you kind of can create your own environment. And luckily the partners they're all on the same page that way. So
yeah, that's exciting.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting having male partners as this election happened. And I think I've become more kind of attuned to that and what that means. And I haven't figured it out yet. I don't know what I feel about it yet, but I think I've been paying a little bit more attention.
You're noticing.
I'm noticing more, yeah. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily in a bad way, just in a, oh, that's interesting way, like the way, men and women lead very differently, mm-hmm. I think, manage a lot of times very differently.
Are you able to
get
define
away?
That?
Yeah, I think men are able to get away with a lot more than women can.
Like what kinds of things?
I think they can be jerky, and that's okay. And if a woman does it, I mean, it's such a cliche. They're a bitch. It's mm-hmm. like you always, I remember I was talking to some of my colleagues, this was a few months ago, is that what you realize in an email, a lot of times women will say just wanted to check in, just want to make sure this is okay, where men never do that, ever.
Right.
Ever. Because they don't have to apologize for themselves, ever. Which is sort of fascinating. And I play into it as much as anyone else. I mean, I put those in my emails, mm-hmm. And I'm starting to be more cognizant of it and sort of stop doing that. But you do. It's like, well, I don't want to come across as like being too forward, and I don't want to, make them feel uncomfortable or, whatever the case may be. I don't know.
It's so funny because they don't even have that thought process when they're writing an email.
No, it's literally right. It's not like, I'm not saying it's bad because they're sort of proactively not doing it. No, it's not even part of their...
Right. It's not, so do you catch yourself now doing it, and do you stop, or do you make the choice?
Not always.
This time I'm going to.
Yes. I actually make the choice, and sometimes I say this time I'm going to.
Or this time I am going to put a smiley face.
Yep, exactly. Although, what's so funny about the smiley face? Because I do the smiley face, but I do it a lot less. My boss, who was just my boss just for a little bit, like a year at studios before I left, he did a smiley face. And I was like, oh my God, it's a guy who's my boss. This big executive did a smiley face. And I was like, I actually remember it really, really well. If he ever listens to this,
that's so funny. Because what does it mean?
I know. It's just to make the blow easier.
It's like kind of friendly.
Right. It's sort of like, hey, I'm telling you something potentially shitty, but hey, everything's going to be okay.
Like
it's
me
all,
anyway.
Yeah, like me anyway. Like, it's all good. Yeah. I mean, I think so much of it is like wanting to make other people feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if, and I'm not saying this across all guys at all, because there's certainly guys who are the same way and who want people to feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of men in power, and maybe women in power too. I mean, I haven't worked... Actually, you know what? There are a lot of women in power who don't want to make people feel comfortable, and a lot of the feedback that those women get are, yeah, they're really hard to read. They're kind of cold, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want people to think, because I know a lot of these executives, and they're not cold. They just are very, when it's business, it's business.
They're just not smiling.
They're just not like putting smiley faces and all that. When it's business, it's business, and when it's personal, it's personal. And they're able to be they're able to separate it. And I think that that's amazing. I don't know if I could really ever be that way, because I think for good or for bad, I'm so much more emotional about things. The good thing about being a family in your business is it's great, but the cons is it's family, so it's emotional, so you're attached. Mm-hmm. So, it's not just like, oh, I don't care. I don't know. It's
like there's conflict and it hurts my feelings.
Exactly. And I'm an emotional person in general, so for me, I think kind of being more straightforward, I think is harder for me. Mm-hmm. I think it's harder for women in general to be more straightforward.
To be Betty business.
Yeah, because then you're kind of looked at like, oh, like she's so like bitchy or so cold. Or
Iron
whatever.
Lady.
Yeah, Iron Lady or whatever. Yeah, and whereas guys, like, you don't even... They just can get away with a lot more, in my opinion.
Interesting. And I think we saw that so much with Hillary Clinton. Like, there was no winning. She was either too cold and too hard, or she wasn't smiling enough, or...
Right.
If you did smile too much, like,
you can't win.
You can't
right.
win.
And so you try to kind of just do the best you can with the person that you are, and pick and choose how you write your emails, and just try to be okay with being sort of... I think what it comes down to is being okay with not being liked.
Yeah.
And I think women in general like to be liked more
Sure.
Or men are able to somehow turn that piece off or bury it somewhere else. Maybe they actually have that, but it gets translated and expresses itself in a different way.
What's in a different compartment?
Yeah, a different compartment. I think a lot of women aim to please. I'm certainly one of those. And, but then I sort of look at my career and I think, well, it hasn't exactly served me horribly.
It worked out.
It worked out. So it's like, yeah, exactly. So it's like you're in this weird...
Something's working out right.
Something's working out right, exactly. So it's a struggle. It's definitely a struggle. And I'm sure it'll be a struggle for a very, very long time. And you learn a little bit more every week.
As you were coming up and learning how to communicate as a woman in this field, and not just emails, but when you were in meetings and were speaking up and figuring out how to navigate that, was it a real conscious, this way of talking isn't working, let me talk a different way?
I think I didn't talk a lot in certain... I would definitely wait until I felt comfortable. But this is something that I actually felt in school. I always was very intimidated by people who I thought were smarter than I was. I was intimidated by the louder, quote unquote, people, right? Because they were loud and they were, I guess you could categorize it as bully. They weren't bullying me, but they were that kind of people, louder. I thought they were smarter, and I was always very nervous to raise my hand and nervous that I was going to look stupid. That I've gotten over. I think that just comes from time and experience and confidence. But in terms of like changing the way I talked, no, I actually don't think so. I think with the people that I felt comfortable with, even when I was younger, I would say what I felt, and I've pretty much been the same. But I think I just didn't raise my hand for a long time.
Yeah. And
now I raise my hand more. And I raised my hand a lot at Discovery when I thought things weren't working out. I was definitely
vocal.
I was definitely vocal. I think no one would say I wasn't vocal with my opinions.
Oh, Leah, she's a wilting flower.
Yeah, I don't think wallflower is exactly how they would put me. Yeah, so I think it was, but I learned that I think you get more bees with honey kind of thing, and it served me well. I mean, I think going after someone and hitting them over the head just didn't work for me. Maybe it works for other people. I don't know. But for me, it's like I know I can get things accomplished by, being as respectful as I can be. And then at a certain point, then you are straightforward. Like, you're as respectful as you can be. And then it's like, well, okay, this is actually the way.
And let me give it to you straight.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, unfortunately, this is just the way it's going to happen. So, which is not easy either. I mean, I'm not like the queen of confrontation. I don't love confrontation. Some people love it.
I don't get that.
I know. I mean, I kind of wish I was better at it. I'm better at it than I was, but I am just not. I don't like it. I find it hard. I find confrontation hard. But working on that too.
Somehow you have to figure out how to have direct conversations without it feeling like confrontation.
Right, with it being not emotional.
Yeah,
it's like kind of taking the emotion out of the conversation. Because when you say confronting, it sounds so emotional.
That's
like
hostile.
I'm confronting. Exactly, hostile. It's like, but you can just sort of say, listen, I don't think something's working out, or I don't like the way you talk to me, or I don't like the way, I think it's all about...
We just speak the truth.
Right. I think it's all about like the fear of the reaction and the fear of what they're going to think of you.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. Again, will they like me?
And it all comes back
to will they like me. It all comes
me.
back to will they like me. And as I said, I think, I'm sure I know there are men who feel that. But it's funny, I think a lot of those men are looked down upon by other men. It's kind of like, oh, they're weak.
Yeah.
It's, it's all a learning journey. I certainly haven't figured it out.
I wonder how much that will change when there are more and more women in power.
In terms of not having that feeling of having to be liked all the time. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, too, having twins, and I have a boy and a girl. So I see how... Yeah, I have my own little... Exactly, I have my own little study. And, my daughter... Oh, God, I'm trying to remember. My mom got her this T-shirt recently, and it says, I'm not bossy. I'm just using my leadership skills. As my mom says, she comes from a long line of bossy women. And I was like, well, that's true. And I'm just sort of seeing the way... And she already is starting to please me more, wants to kind of please more than my son. And I don't know why. I don't know why. I mean, I just see her being like, Mommy, Rowan did that. Like, I didn't say he should do that. Like, I told him he shouldn't do, that kind of thing where, like,
I'm a good girl.
I'm a good girl. And he can get away. He still gets punished, so it's not, but it's like they just don't care as much. And I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it is definitely, it has to be biological. Absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
Because they are such different people and they react so differently to things.
We are wired very differently.
Very, very differently. They are very different people. And they have been since kind of the beginning. I don't know. Maybe she sees me in certain situations. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But maybe if there are more women in power, in real positions of power, like the president. And although, there are women in power in other countries. And I don't know. Maybe it's different there. Look at Germany. Maybe the women in Germany are different. Trip. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they might be. They've had a woman leader for quite a long time. Maybe they it'd be interesting to see. I don't know. We're kind of one of the few that haven't.
I know, isn't that weird?
It is weird. I mean, it's sort of like they act like this is like the biggest thing. It's like, guys, there have been women who are like the heads of state in like a lot of countries.
Yeah, we are not as forward thinking as we think.
Not as progressive as we think. Not at all.
Not remotely. No. Are you a success?
Am I a success? Yes.
Good job.
Definitely a success.
Are you a badass?
Am I a badass? Oh. That's a weird question.
That's a grimace.
I know. I was going to say, am I a badass? In some things, I'm a badass. Yeah. Yeah. In some things. Not everything.
What does badass mean to you?
Fearless. And it's funny because I just got my first tattoo at 40.
You did?
Yes. And it says, "She who is brave is free." And I just got it.
Let me see. Oh, I love it.
And it was sort of, after I turned 40, I was thinking about this transition and I realized like, I'm just not going to be free unless I'm brave enough to kind of, and I'm still working on being brave, in a million different ways, but it's like, you feel that freedom if you're brave, to me. And a lot of people came up to me after I made that decision to leave Discovery and was like, God, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. And that's amazing. And, I didn't feel like it was super brave, but now I kind of look back and think, well, I guess it was.
Oh, it was brave.
Yeah. I mean, you did the same thing. Yeah. It's like, you're taking a chance on yourself. You're kind of betting on yourself. And I sort of had always needed that something else, that someone else, that boss, that company, that something. But I think
that safety net.
That safety net. And I think I finally was like, you know what, I'm going to be brave enough to do this on my own, and it gives you a certain amount of freedom, for sure.
Because I think you get to a point of, if not now, when? And what are you waiting for?
Exactly. And I knew it was like, this was my moment. Whether it works out or doesn't, I don't know. I mean, I sort of joke, like in a year I could be working at, A&E, but...
and that wouldn't be bad.
And that wouldn't be bad either. Fine. Yeah. But... it's like this was the perfect time for me. It was the right people. It was the right timing. It was the right everything. And it just, worked out. So,
and it's going to lead to something.
Yeah. I mean,
it may not be what you imagined.
That is the one thing I've definitely learned in my career, in life in general. It's like, it doesn't feel like, it feels like you're stagnant. I remember because so much of my 20s and my probably early 30s, but mostly my 20s was like, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not moving ahead. I feel so stagnant. I mean, at one point I wanted to leave the business and do something else. Like, I just felt like I wasn't able to do what I knew I could do. I couldn't use all that. I just knew I could do so much more, and like no one was recognizing it, and I hated that. But it happens. It's, patience is not exactly one of my strong suits. But it does. It happens. It just happens in a weird way, and usually not when you actually think. Like, not on your time. Well, usually not on your timeline.
Hardly ever on your timeline.
Yes. Hardly ever on your timeline.
Did you see that meme that was going around with Helen Mirren? And it said, there comes a point at midlife when the universe puts their hands on your shoulders and says, now is the time. Now it's time for you to do what you're meant to do.
That's what it felt like. Yeah. It was like, this is what you should do right now. This is absolutely what you should do.
Some people call it midlife crisis. Or,
getting
opportunity.
Getting a tattoo at 40 and leaving, right, absolutely could be looked at in another way, which is midlife crisis. But I'm going to choose to look at it more positive, universe telling me what to do. But yeah, so.
No, it's the little whisper of, it's time to do my thing.
Yeah, and what's great about Discovery is they really recognized that and was totally okay with it. It was like, you know what? More power to you. We wish you the best of luck. And, that's awesome that you want to do this. This is so great. And
I mean, if that's not affirmation that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. And they were like, I think it's time too. I mean, we actually had very logical, straightforward conversations. I did with HR and my boss. And I was like, you know what? I think I've sort of done what I could do here. I've grown this and I've built an amazing team who are incredible and who will absolutely...
I'm going to steal at my first opportunity.
Exactly, steal at my first opportunity. Well, because they're incredible and they, do so much of the work. And, I'm letting my baby go. My baby's grown up and going to college and I'm going to have another baby that I'm going to kind of nurture, And I think everyone recognized that there was sort of nowhere else I really wanted to go at that organization, or to go, really.
Yeah.
That made sense. And
your next step is building your own empire.
Building your own empire. Exactly. I'm ready. 100% ready to build it.
What do you think the next steps are for women?
In this business, in general?
In the business and in the world.
And in the world, in this business. I mean, women are in great seats of power in this business, for sure. I think certainly television. I don't know enough about film and movie, but in television, they're at high levels. I don't think interestingly enough, now that I'm looking at financing of companies and things like that, the big companies that either own these, and I say a smaller company, like own a NBC, the big companies or the big hedge funds that actually are the equity partners or own these companies are mostly run by men.
Yeah.
So I think the business part of entertainment is still very much run by men, and I'd like to see that change because I think that would make a big difference. Because obviously, the business is to make money. That creative is great and content, it's very important for sure. But in the end, they want their stock to rise and make margins and blah blah blah. So I think a lot of those companies are still very much run by men, and they get to make the decisions of the direction. Of certain companies. I mean, even Discovery, we used to joke about this, literally this year has finally added a woman to its board.
Oh, good job.
I was like, I just thought, we used to joke, I said, just for like a PR thing, you should have a woman. You know what I mean? Like, qualifications are neither here nor there, at least just to pretend like you look
care.
good to the community. Should probably have a woman, but they didn't until now.
How many people are on the board?
I think it's 12. And I think they're all white men, except for this one woman. They're not even, I don't even think they have an African American on. So when you really go to that sort of tippy top, you'll see women running studios, you'll see women running networks, you'll see women in those, which are very high level, no doubt about it. But there's always, it seems, a man above.
Yeah, and it's funny because the data shows the more women you have on your board of directors, the more profitable your company is.
I'm not surprised.
But I'm not sure they believe it. Because otherwise, all the boards would be 50-50.
Yeah, no, they definitely, I think probably, I think the other thing we've learned from this election is deep down, I think there's a lot more sexism and racism than people even kind of, it's very subconscious. And I think this election has brought it more to the forefront, like, oh, wow, maybe I am. I think there's a ton of sexism. I think it's, to say kind of it doesn't exist or racism doesn't exist anymore. Absolutely, sexism exists.
Ask women and people of color.
Right, exactly. It's like, you ask someone, an African American, they'll be like, yeah,
hello.
Racism exists. And sexism exists too. And I think they probably don't want them on the board because they feel like they're inferior in some way. Mm-hmm. And they are in position of power and they don't want to give it up. And I'm not saying, this is, obviously that's a broad generalization and not every man thinks that way at all. And
there are all the disclaimers.
Right, but I'm sure there are boards of companies that are 50-50 or maybe more women than men. I just don't think they're at certainly from, I only really know entertainment from a high level entertainment point of view. I don't think that exists. And I think probably when that does exist, things will be a little more different for women in the business.
Yeah.
And I assume eventually it'll happen. There's so many women in this business, I think, and they've come so far in a short amount of time. I think that it will happen. It's just going to take some time,
Some more time.
Some more time, I know. But, for me, it's like, I kind of look at it as, I'm 41 and I'm partnered with people who are, been in the business a lot longer than I have. And, they wanted me to be their partner. So,
well, you are killing it.
So there you go. As I said, wherever it ends up, I mean, I think that's great. I'm flattered.
What advice would you give to young women coming up?
Find a mentor. I mean, I think for me, that was really helpful. And I actually, what's funny is I think I have the same advice for men and women coming up. Mm-hmm. Find a mentor and just try to learn as much as you can. Just say whatever you need. Hey, do you need me to do this extra thing? Hey, can I dig into this for you? And just push to learn, because the 20s certainly, I think, is when a lot of times I say it's when you learn what you don't want to do. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is, oh, I really dug into this. Yeah, don't want to do that. Okay, next thing. But really find someone who's willing to embrace you and give you a chance, because you will just grow so much from that. But the advice is the same for men and women in that way.
Who was your mentor?
I had a lot of mentors, actually. Okay. My aunt was a mentor. One of my producers, Kira, friend, was a mentor. I mean, my mom was a mentor. My other aunt, who's a stay-at-home mom, is a mentor, or who was a stay-at-home mom. I'm trying to think I didn't really have any. In a strange way, actually, Tom Beers was a mentor, and people were probably shocked to hear that. But he kind of just said, "I trust you." It was him and this other person, George Packaber, who basically said, "I trust you. Go do your thing." And they trusted me. They trusted me with, that's huge. They trusted me with, I was 25 or 26, maybe 25, and running a $5 million production budget. And they trusted me with it, which is, I look back and think, Jesus Christ, that's insane. But, so I think mentors can be different things, but.
I forgot about Tuesdays in my yard guy.
It's Tuesdays in the yard guy.
It is only going to get worse.
I feel like I should have advice just for women, but I think in general, be brave. But again, I'd say that to men and women. I think it's just harder for women to be brave. That's
just
what I would
be
say.
Brave.
Yeah, just.
Especially when you're young, before you have children and before you have the husband, before you have the house,
push,
mortgage, and the.
Push. Yeah, be brave. Take chances.
Yeah, lean in.
Lean in. I know. Lean in.
It's all true.
I'm almost done with that book, by the way. Any day now.
Lean into that book.
Yeah, lean into that book. Oh, like I have time to read a book. God knows.
Thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. This is super fun.
It's fun, right?
It is.
You've been listening to The Other 50%. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Leah Dosik Carney for sharing her story, and special thanks to Jonathan Lucas for editing, Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on iTunes and subscribe and leave a review, and on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out, for additional features, bios of our guests, and now swag, coffee cups and t-shirts. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter at Other50%. Thanks for listening. See you next time.